Hi everyone, it's Autumn. Please excuse my raspy voice. I am just getting over being sick. So today I wanted to talk about cognitive dissonance in and how it affects us. And I think this is especially true when it comes to narcissists and narcissistic relationships, being in a relationship with a cluster B personality disordered person. There's a certain amount of cognitive dissonance that we employ in our life, both in the relationship and especially afterwards. Cognitive dissonance is, so if you break down those two words, cognitive is thinking, basically the ability to think or how we think, and dissonance is a discord. In music, they talk a lot about dissonance, dissonant notes. Basically, they're two notes that rub against each other. If you've ever heard two pitches of sound that almost like rub, where it's like hard to, it hurts your ear, that's a dissonant frequency pitch. And so dissonance is two conflicting, essentially, ideas or thoughts or two conflicting truths. Like, okay, so one of the things when we're growing up and we are told by our family, by society, by our schools, by our teachers, by our peers, what is true, what we know the world to be. So I'm going to use the example of, for instance, 9/11. They talk a lot about, because that the anniversary just happened, and I was thinking about it a lot, and they talk a lot about cognitive dissonance when it comes to issues of our government and what we're told on mass media and what is propagated. So one example that I see cognitive dissonance coming into play a lot is any kind of, so I have two groups of people I know. People who are a little bit more open-minded, that have ideas about what may be true when it comes to what happened with 9/11 based on conflicting information. Then I have another group of people have in my life that are absolutely strict, 100%. This is what happened. What happened was what the media told us, what the government told us, and if you think anything else, you're crazy. So what happened was when they were younger, I think, they were told to that whatever you hear on the radio, whatever you hear on the news, whatever the government tells you, the official story is what is true. This was pounded into their head. I, for instance, did not grow up in a family like that. I was taught to question authority. My parents were kind of ex-hippies against the Vietnam War back in the 60s and 70s. And, I was taught to kind of question it and have my own truths be the basis by which I make decisions and the basis by which I determine what is true or not. But what happens a lot with cognitive dissonance is even if we're confronted with a fact, right? So you believe that 9/11 happened as is, but let's say there's a fact that comes up or a piece of information that comes up that would potentially discredit what you believe to be true. Let's say, for instance, the thermite that was found after the explosions of the or explosions. Okay, the falling down of the buildings. Let's say the fact that only three buildings ever have fallen down with steel structures by being hit by fire or airplanes, which is the three World Trade Center 1, 2, and 7. This information is conflicting with the official story. So there's a disharmony that happens in people. I mean, I've seen it happen when I've displayed this information to them. And so they have to either reform their way of thinking, which means abandoning the idea that what they are told on the media and what they are told by the government is always going to be true. And that's really hard to do if that's how you were born and raised. Or you have to discredit and ignore the new information because you can't believe both. One is going to conflict with the other. If you believe that there really was thermite found and that it's not possible for those three buildings to come down the way that they did and crumble into ashes, everything disintegrate based on jets hitting steel frame buildings. If you say, okay, I believe that, well, then you can't believe what the government told you. So this is a place where cognitive dissonance comes in. And when we're in the relationship with a narcissist, you're going to see it happening or happen after the relationship all the time. You're faced with two truths. And for instance, it happened with me in the relationship towards the end. I had this idea that my ex-husband narcissist was a good, kind-hearted man. And yet now I was starting to get information that said otherwise. The way he acted, information about what he did, the things that he did, how he acted to me, how he treated me. And at first, I couldn't consolidate the two because one conflicted with the other. If I listened to truths, and they were truths about how he acted, what he did, then I could not believe he was a good man still. And I really believed that in my heart of hearts. So I ignored it. But there comes a time where you pass that threshold, where the proof, the truth, the information you're being given is too overwhelming. The facts are too clear, right? And you can no longer hold on to the old idea of who this person really is, the idea you thought this person was. And now if you believe the new truths, if you acknowledge the new information you're given, you can no longer believe they're a good person. The two cannot be reconciled. A good person wouldn't act the way a narcissist acts. A good person wouldn't lie and have a whole nother life. Wouldn't be cheating. Wouldn't abuse you emotionally or physically or verbally. Okay. And this is always the point, the red pill point, where we all wake up. It's the point where we sabotage the relationship purposely, subconsciously, or we consciously end it. We don't want it anymore, even if it's hard. Or we don't want it anymore, but we can't get out of it because we're so trapped in it. We're so abused by this person and manipulated by their nonsense that even though we're starting to wake up and realize who this person really is, and there are times where we look at them and we hate them because we're seeing the truth now, because our cognitive dissonance has been broken. Cognitive dissonance happens always in our world, but the worst type of cognitive dissonance to happen is when there's a truth that we can't see because of other ideas about what is reality. In a way, I see myself like that before I met and married my narcissist. I truly did not believe there were people like this out there. I knew it. I had actually encountered them a few times in my professional life, but I never thought that somebody would marry someone, say they love them, and not really love them, be using them. I never thought there were people that truly did not have a conscience. Or I thought if there were those people, that they stuck to themselves. I guess I did not think that this was the reality of what life is like. There are people like this. They will lie to you. They will exploit your love for them. You could have only goodness for them, only good intentions. And they are so selfish and so narcissistic or sociopathic. They will exploit your love for them, and it won't even faze them. I did not think the world was like this. And this is a form of cognitive dissonance. Because guess what? When I was encountered with it initially, I could not believe it. It kept me in the dark. And it kept me, I believe, from seeing the red flags, from listening to my intuition. Because when I look back with my ex, there were red flags that I just glossed right over. There were stop signs that I just blew right through. There were times where my intuition was screaming at me that I ignored. Because I would tell my intuition, oh, you're just my problems. You're just my issues. Shh, quiet. But in reality, those were the truths that were being blown my way. My cognitive dissonance couldn't let me see it because I held so firmly to an idea that this is not the way the world was. That people like this didn't exist. That no one would say they love you if they didn't. That if relationships end, they end from a mutually, a place of not being able to be compatible. I don't know what I thought. I guess in my life, this was the reality of it. And it wasn't until I met my ex-husband, who it was a liar, a sociopath, and a narcissist who treated me horribly, that I couldn't even see it in the moment, even though I knew I felt horribly. So I think it's really important to understand this idea of cognitive dissonance as we go on in our life, to understand what some of our issues were in seeing the narcissist for who they are, but especially moving forward, so we stay aware. So we stay aware of, we stay focused on our intuition. I think our intuition, we have been told, that is something that is, voodoo, la, 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 like, that we aren't supposed to listen to it. I'm telling you right now, like, the wildebeest, or I don't even know, the gazelle, doesn't need to go up and intellectually understand that the lion is a predator and it's got to run away. It just knows it from very far away. That's that animal's built-in intuition. We have that too. The vagus nerve, which is, runs in between our stomach and our head, it literally is a evolutionary guidance system, so to speak, of intuition. It's why your stomach flips. That nerve runs from our brain down to our gut. And we say we feel it in our gut. That's why. There's an evolutionary part of us that was built into us as humans throughout thousands and thousands and tens of thousands of years of evolution, just like every other animal in the wild. That they know intuitively. If they're a well-functioning animal, they know intuitively who's a friend, who's a foe, who's a predator, where to go, where not to go. Don't go that way. That's why animals will, before an earthquake even hits, you'll see a mass rush of animals leaving the area before the earthquake even hits, because they have an intuition system that they listen to, because they don't have verbal cues like we do. They don't have so much other stimuli going on. Really, if you think about it, all animals truly have is their intuition. But we have evolved so far away from it. We've learned to discredit it. Because guess what? Predators don't want you to listen to your intuition. You know what they want? They want you to stay in a place of cognitive dissonance, where you don't accept truth because it contradicts with a brainwashed truth that you already told, either by the government or by your peers or by the predator themselves, the narcissists that run this world. So I think it's very, very important to be aware of the places where we are vulnerable to have cognitive dissonance, how that can possibly make us vulnerable, make us prey, and also to remain open and have our ears open and our eyes open to our intuition, so that when another predator comes up, because they will, because this is the world we live in. Now I know that our intuition could be like, beep, 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 red rum, beep, 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 red flag, leave, run away as fast as you can. When I met my ex-husband, when I met my ex-husband, my intuition was going off everywhere. The first few dates. And there was a voice in my head that said, run, run, run away. I even told my best friend after the second date, this guy's so cute, he likes me so much, da 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 da, but just thing in me that just keeps saying, run away, run, run, run. I don't know if it's my issues. I don't know. Da, da, da. No, it was my intuition. It was my intuition. When I look back in my life, the reason why I never was with someone like this before is because every time I met someone like this, I listened to my intuition. But this particular time, he was really good. He really got me. And I had been going to therapy previously. I was in a good place. And I was being hyper vigilant about my issues. And I didn't want my quote unquote issues to make me run away from or not get something in my life that was good. And that's what I blamed it on. Now I know, no, these aren't our issues. Okay, so that's enough about cognitive dissonance and our intuition. But I just want to encourage everybody to do something, sometimes meditation or praying or just sitting quietly with ourselves so that we start to trust our gut, trust our intuition, know that it's there for a reason, and know that, we can. There's a lot of self-protection mechanisms that's built into our body, into our psyche. And now that we're aware, intellectually we're learning the red flags, and we're aware of what, our intuition means. Look back, I'm curious. If you look back in your life when you met your narcissist, do you remember any intuition? Do you remember anything saying, hey, get away from this person? Or don't date this girl, or don't date this guy? I'm curious. Let me know if you remember any intuitive thoughts. But yeah, so I hope everybody's good. Namaste. Much love.